So, we're going to be talking today about possibly the most depressed man who ever lived. And if you haven't figured it out yet, it's T.S. Eliot. So let's just get to that part of the document. T.S. Eliot, he was a depressed dude. I don't know why. No one really knows why. Anyway, so we're going to be looking at 5 of his poems. But let's start off with the textual integrity of T.S. Eliot. Presented through Eliot's unique descriptions of different people in everyday life, particularly in Preludes, stanza 2. Textual integrity also through Eliot's critique of modernity, individual struggles and loneliness. Use of intertextuality throughout works, and he uses classical literature in all poems. Canonical status. Eliot's use of themes appealing to audience across a range of periods allows his text to have canonical status. He challenges societal values. Poems deal with universal human concerns. Struggle, what's the meaning of life? Is God real? Do I fit in? Alright, let's start off with The Love Song of J. Alfred Prufrock. This was written in 1915. The context, it was a modernist poem. It has an irregular rhyme scheme, reflects thoughts of people searching for love in an uncertain world. So this is T.S. Eliot. Captures unexpressed love, fragmented thoughts of Eliot, in love with someone but lacks courage to express this. Themes. The condition of modernity and the theme of isolation. Poem reflects on Eliot's views of cultural and historical trends of early modernity, 15th to 18th century, and late modernity, 18th century to now. Contrast drawn between Prufrock and Hamlet. Prufrock is seen as a feeble, self-conscious character, product of superficial contemporary culture. Both feel alienated, struggle to take action. 20th century modernity seen as degraded version of early modern era, producing Hamlet. Societal context differentiates the two characters. To wonder, do I dare, do I dare? This is repetition, the use of rhetorical question. It's all about anxiety. Eliot's pondering, do I ask this girl or do I not? So it's just like, I guess we isolate ourselves. Modernity's like always questioning things instead of just going for it. So that quote again is, to wonder, do I dare, do I dare? Scuttling across the floors of silent seas. Sibilance, demanding verb, scuttling, and a metaphor. This highlights Prufrock's social isolation and his anxiety. He feels like he's on the floor of the ocean, but he's not in the ocean. Oh my god, I sound like an idiot. Scuttling across the floors of silent seas. Is that again? Crisis of mortality. Faces threat and mystery of time. And indeed, there will be time. Metaphor, high modality. Prufrock understands time is an antagonist, a force drawing him closer to his ultimate destiny. What's his destiny? Depression. With a bald spot in the middle of my hair, indicates Prufrock has limited time. Prufrock acknowledges he is afraid of death and that it is waiting for him. By the end, he embraces this. With I grow old, I grow old. Repetition highlights his worry. Quote, I have seen the eternal footman, I was afraid. It's a metaphor for death, fear, uses that crisis of mortality theme. So he's saying, I'm afraid of death. And so it's linking to the condition of modernity, and it's giving it textual integrity because it's highlighting a human concern. We're all worried about dying. And then we've got bonus language devices, which is just a thing for this one. In the room, women come and go, talking of Michelangelo. Repetition of social world observed by Prufrock. He's too paralyzed to join it. He feels isolated, so you could talk about that with the theme of isolation. I have known the eyes already. The eyes that fix you in a formulated phrase. Those two are two different quotes, but they all have the idea of eyes being integral. So he's feeling anxiety. People are constantly staring at him. He's feeling like that. So he feels judged. Metaphor. It's a metaphor, sorry. Eliot feels detached from the world, experiences panic in social situations. Guess you could say a bit of repetition with the eyes throughout the poem, and maybe an extended metaphor, because it's all about being watched, but he never really explicitly says it. He feels the effect of the scrutiny of the social gaze, not face. Next we've got Hollow Men, written in 1925. Context, this is pretty long. Poem of alienation and despair. Undercurrent of hopelessness and futility. Concept of scarecrow plus ironic references to children's songs, chants, and games recur. We refers to the lost generation, which are the people who came of age following World War One. The world had never seemed so meaningless for them, so it was a tough period. He plays on the idea of two kingdoms of death. The afterlife is referred to as death's domain, and also the afterlife, brackets death's domain, referred to as death's other kingdom, so he refers to it as two different things. Part 1 introduces Hollow Men with powerful images. Part 2 emanates fear and avoidance, life disguised. Part 3 comments on emptiness of religion. Nothing but prayers to broken stone. Obviously we know that he, well, we don't know, that he was religious and then he left it. It wasn't for him. He's a confusing guy. He suggests, part 4 suggests a lack of understanding, no eyes here, plus unfulfilling relationships. Part 5 begins with children's game chant, prickly pear, communicate downward spiral of disintegrating hope. Now we've got the themes. Epic. Failure. Characters are an example of failure. Hollow men trapped on riverbank, demonstration of failure. Failure of faith plus failure of will to allow them to cross over to the afterlife. One final failure at the end, not with a bang but with a whimper, sorry. So, in this valley of dying stars, this is a metaphor, also uses visual imagery and descriptive language. It's a big one, all about failure. So that quote again is in this valley of dying stars. Next we've got false as shadow, symbolism, metaphor. It prevents the men from leading to the next step. It prevents them from getting to the afterlife. And it's a metaphor. There's not actually a shadow there. They're kind of making that shadow, I guess you could say. So that quote again is false as shadow. And then we've got not with a bang but with a whimper. This is a metaphor for the destiny of humankind being kind of pathetic. So yeah, you can really expand on that one. So that is not with a bang but with a whimper. Next we've got the theme of faith, explored by contrasting hollow men who are stuck with those who have faith and who have crossed into the afterlife. Direct eyes represent those who have faith. Contrast between dead land, which is a land without faith, and a distant land narrator sees in sleep. His dream is to get to death's other kingdom. He yearns to be in death's other kingdom, as I just said, but didn't realise what I was going to say. Direct eyes is a quote. It's symbolic of people who have faith. Yep. So eyes are really important in Eliot's poetry we've just figured out. So that quote again is direct eyes. Dead land, contrasting between a land without faith and a distant land with faith. Faith theme. So that quote again, dead land. Next we've got death's other kingdom. It's a metaphor referring to the afterlife. Faith theme. Death's other kingdom. Alright, now we're on to preludes, 1910s. Context, preludes 1 and 2 viewed as poems. Images of wet and dirty streets create dreary atmosphere. Permeates explorations of mind and soul later in poem. Preludes 1 consists of physical sensations and actions. Vivid image of wasted energy and metaphor. burnt out ends of smoky days. Many symbols and themes explored in this later explored in other works. Smoke, wind and rain, broken and discarded objects and grimy streets, the urban routine. So our themes, we've got isolation and depersonalization, represented by scarce, fragmentary and anonymous human images. Lighting of the lamps suggests a human action on deserted streets, yet only expressed as a fragment. Feet prominent, only specific human detail. Woman in part 3, described only through gestures involving hair, soiled hands and feet. Fingers stuffing pipes, eyes assured of certain certainties, and a mouth engaged in derisive gestures. Mocks human ignorance and futility, uses a bit of alliteration. So I have linked the quotes in there. Whoops. Suffering. All the inhabitants of the world are suffering in his belief. Or is it just him? He lives in a rundown city. Living situations appear impoverished. Souls are truly suffering. They're filled with sordid images and material preoccupations. They don't notice each other's humanity. Eliot's true definition of suffering. Yep. So quotes. The worlds revolve like ancient women gathering fuel in vacant lots. So this is a simile about life being repetitive. It's endlessly repeating. And the final image leaves audience with a sense of hopelessness. That quote again is, the worlds revolve like ancient women gathering fuel in vacant lots. Next we've got that fade behind a city block or trampled by insistent feet. So this is a metaphor about the soul being diminished and ignored, and we're wrecking the soul. We are the perpetrators of people ignoring our souls and trampling all over it. So that is that fade behind a city block or trampled by insistent feet. Trampled and press. Tone change, convey a feeling of entrapment. A part of stanza 2, which uses enjambment and a rhyming slant, an integral example of Eliot's poem's textual integrity, describes a persona experiencing the struggles that many humans face. The Journey of the Magi, 1927. Context. It was written in the same year Eliot converted to Christianity. It's about the Magi, the three wise men, journeying to Bethlehem for Christ's birth. Magi experience sea change of religious convictions whilst travelling. Narrated by one of the Magi, set in winter, not wither. Journey fraught with challenges. Journeys of struggle are like one wrestling with their faith, so there is symbolism. Themes, hardship. So the Magi come from wealth and luxury. They give up those comforts, and the journey forces them to set them aside. Which is discussed in the first section of the poem. The journey is quite difficult, travel, and they live in a way to which they are not accustomed to. Magi are depicted second-guessing themselves and their decision to embark on the journey. The speaker is resolute in their conviction that the journey was worth the pains and troubles. And the villagers, dirty and charging high prices, a hard time we had of it. So he's talking about the struggle of humanity. He's complaining. Don't really have a technique for that one. I'm sure there's one, but yeah, anyway. This birth was hard and bitter agony for us, like death, our death. So this is descriptive language, conversational tone, also a simile. So he's describing the pain that they're going through. Yeah. I don't know. But at the end of the day, he's saying it was worth it, even if we wanted to die. Ambiguity of experience / quest. Viewed from perspective of distant recollection. Poem details what insight encounter may have granted someone who shared in it. In the last part of the poem, narrator doesn't quite grasp full significance of what was witnessed. No clear explanation to either of the below. Shown grappling with duality of birth and death, struggling to understand why they were brought there to begin with. The Magi return homeward. They are fundamentally transformed by experience, native land begins to feel foreign to them, so they go from being people who love material preoccupations in their home countries to going to an unfamiliar place to then coming back, and then that's the unfamiliar place. We return to our places, these kingdoms, but no longer at ease here in the old dispensation, is a quote about that. So definitely some language devices there, I'm sure. Alright, so now we have Rhapsody on a Windy Night. So context for this bad boy, speaker walks along a deserted street at midnight. Poem sounds almost like stage directions. Speaker suggests lamps trigger memories of the past, likens his thought process to that of a lunatic, derived from a belief that a full moon causes madness. He could be on drugs, is a good suggestion I figured out. Woman. She's a prostitute. She's an example of the underbelly of the night. Eliot contemplates how things that were once useful become hideous. Roast. Recalls vivid memories of objects the speaker sees. So the themes, we've got madness. Yes. Eliot's wandering alone around Paris between 12 and 4 a.m. Poet sees things on the streets, often has vivid hallucinations and reflections, e.g. hallucinogenic drumbeat of street lamps. Eliot appears to either be in a heightened mental state or experiencing dementia. Because was he getting old at this point? I didn't have a date. Too formal. So the quotes I've got are, "And through the spaces of the dark, midnight shakes the memory." So we're using metaphor, visual imagery, and personification in this one. So like, midnight shakes the memory. But it's just saying, yeah, it's causing him to reflect the time. It's quiet. Good chance to remember things. I don't know. The street lamp said personification, so it just kind of shows that this guy is absolutely mad. Like, street lamps, last time I checked, they don't talk. Next we've got memory and dreams. Memories triggered by what poet sees on the street. Image of cat that slips out its tongue and devours a morsel of rancid butter. Motion of cat's tongue linked to motion of child's hand that slipped out to steal a toy. Poet could be dreaming what is described, or it could be actual memories. Images and memories jumbled, mimicking the way that a memory works. It doesn't just go in chronological order, it goes in some randomized order. And T.S. Eliot is also very random, so we didn't have high expectations in the first place. So the hand of a child, automatic, slipped out and pocketed a toy. Voyeuristic, colloquial. It's like he's looking through the eyes of, I don't know, his memory, or a child, or I don't really know. He just watched a child steal a toy. Maybe he stole the toy. We're never gonna know, because he's dead. The reminiscence comes of sunless dry geraniums and dust and crevices. Visual imagery. Standard goes on to list images symbolic of decay. Oh my god, low battery. Bonus quote. Put your shoes at the door, sleep, prepare for life, the last twist of the knife. Bit of a rhyme there. Phrase, the twist of the knife, I guess. Hat modality and a metaphor. This quote describes the activities of everyday life. There we go. There you have it. T.S. Eliot in just 19 minutes.